Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. One of the first tasks, of course, of any government, any new cabinet, any new sort of regime, will be to address the problem of the shortage of police force, the lack of resources, the problems they are having. There are not enough police, law and order in Scotland is falling apart, and we have crimes that will just not go investigated because of this lack of investment. And if Swinney does not at least make some show of dealing with it, then it will be immediately apparent that he too does not agree with the rule of law and order. But of course the SNP don't, do they? Last thing they want is lots of policemen. They may have just enough time to investigate the SNP. Can't be having that. Especially Swinney. He knows he does not want to be investigated at all. And so I suspect that the problems with the police will go on. And that's particularly sad because, as we're going to see in this report, there is a very great need of more policemen because officers have dropped to the lowest level, well, almost ever, but certainly within the last 15 years. Basically, ever since the SNP have come to power, they've continually watched as police numbers have fallen. And so now, on Swinney's watch, it continues to fall. What is it with the SNP and their complete lack of wanting policing and law and order in Scotland? It's almost like they're a criminal organisation, isn't it? Let's take a look and see what's going on. So, Police Scotland officers dropped to the lowest staffing levels in 15 years. Police Scotland had 16,356 full-time officers at the end of March this year, way below its operational needs. Thousands below its operational needs, probably 5,000 below what it would actually like to be at in order to fill all the available roles. And of course they've got very limited budgets, and with a limited budget they have to do things. So what they tend to do is get rid of civilian workers within the police force, replace them with actual officers doing sort of menial or admin tasks rather than being out patrolling, looking, making a presence felt. They're all sitting in offices filling in stuff that previously the admin, civilian support staff would do. So it's probably even worse than that when it turns, when you're looking at the actual number of patrolling officers. So anyway, the number of police officers in Scotland has dropped again to its lowest level in more than 15 years, with almost 260 officers having left the force in the last year alone. Some through non-replaced retirement, some through health and stress, some just fed up of the job. Police Scotland had 16,356 full-time officers at the end of March this year. This is the lowest figure since the end of September 2008, according to figures published by the Scottish Government. The latest stats showed that the number of full-time officers had fallen by 259 from the same time the previous year. This is the equivalent of at least one officer leaving the force every working day for the last 12 months. So one officer every day, another one gone, another one gone, another one gone. It's not surprising. The stresses, the workload, and of course as more leave, the stresses and workload increase for those who remain. There are people going on long-term sick as well as not leaving. So remember, of all the 16,000 and 6,500 officers you got, a big chunk will be doing the admin work, not out in patrol. And there's going to be many on long-term sick leave because of the stress of the job. It is absolutely appalling that they've got to this situation. But it cannot be accidental. You don't get to this stage accidentally after 17 years, not after repeated warning after warning after warning. So therefore, it must, by definition, be deliberate. And if it's deliberate, we have to ask why. Why do the SNP want so few police? Is it so that those police are so heavily put upon on the normal calling of their duties that they cannot waste time investigating the SNP? It's the only conclusion I can draw. Earlier this year, Scottish Police Federation General Secretary David Kennedy warned any further drops in officer numbers could see an increase in organised crime activity. And it did, indeed, it is increasing all the time. One only has to look at Holyrood to see that that is true. The bottom line, he said, is that intelligence on organised crime groups and terrorism comes from the communities, as he told the 1919 magazine, which is the in-house magazine for rank and file officers. He said if you don't have community police officers out there patrolling and picking up on that intelligence, then they're missing out on so much. Concerns have also been raised over the practicalities of police officers investigating incidents recorded under the newly introduced Hate Crime and Public Order Scotland Act. Now, I'm going to say here, just as a tangent and aside, that act needs to be repealed. Almost immediately, Swinney needs to repeal that. Firstly, to free up the police, and secondly, to show the people that they will be listened to, because 99% of the people don't want it. And thirdly, of course, although he would never admit it, it wouldn't half piss on Humza Yousaf's bonfire, wouldn't it? Anyway, concerns. We've just done that. Sorry. It emerged earlier this year. 7,152 complaints were made online in the week of its introduction. Although only 240 were escalated and recorded as hate crimes. It's still 240 that they didn't need to deal with because there are already existing laws for this sort of thing. Scottish Conservative Justice spokesman Russell Findlay described the latest officer numbers as alarming and said his party is committed to boosting staff levels. To be fair, the Tories always have believed in a strong and large police force. He continued, this latest alarming drop in how Police Scotland's ability to tackle crime is being undermined by the Scottish SNP government. He said Police Scotland have been forced to stop investigating certain crimes while dealing with a deluge of complaints caused by the hate crime law. And yet ministers expect falling numbers of officers to do more with less, which is unfair and unsustainable. Our party is committed to putting 1,000 more officers on Scotland's streets. I think 2,000 to 3,000 more minimum is needed. Absolutely. And not just Central Belt, I mean across especially rural areas. Crime in rural areas is often bad because there is a long time delay in getting out to people. But also for things like farm thefts and things, it's huge value. And nobody can patrol it because the areas are just too big. You need 4,000-5,000 maybe. 2 or 3 to begin with, but maybe looking to put more. And many in rural areas. Make rural communities safe, you know. A Police Scotland spokesperson said officer recruitment was delayed in 2003 to ensure policing was delivered on budget. We restarted officer recruitment in March. But then by the time you select, put through, train, get the dropouts and back, it's probably going to be September, October before there's any sign of these new officers, by which time even more people will have left. It's an ongoing churn. And until there is a massive uplift in numbers, all of a sudden, in a very short period, people won't notice. And it is absolutely appalling that this is happening. But then, you know, the SNP voters must want this. They keep voting for this. They live in areas of increasingly high crime and then moan, oh, there's too much crime. This is why you keep voting for parties that take away policemen. Stop doing it. Coming up. You have to make decisions, of course. What do you want? Do you want a safe society, policed, regulated, where people know that in the moments of their greatest need of help, there is help available? When they're being attacked, there's help available. When they've been the victims of crime, people are going to investigate and hopefully bring the perpetrators to justice. Or do you want a Wild West? You know, a crime-ridden Wild West where those with the biggest fists win. And by fists, I mean obviously handguns. That's what's happening. That's what's happening in Scotland because nobody wants to give the police the resources. A choice has to be made, and there's only one, you know. Abandon all the independence bullshit. Cut all the expense on independence and put the money where it's needed. Policing, hospitals, schools, the communities. Not some vague wet dream of independence that isn't going to happen in my lifetime. Hey ho, I'll stop there. Thank you very much for watching. Do please hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, leave a like, leave a comment. Please share the video, and I will speak to you later. Bye.